Everybody, my guest on the show today is Amanda Baudier. Amanda is a whole person executive coach. We're going to talk about what that means. She's a mom. She's a podcaster. She's a spiritual teacher. And I have to say this, she's almost my neighbor, which does not happen often on this show. I've talked to people in Asia, a lot of people in the EU, California. We both live in the Catskills, which is not that common. We're a whopping one county apart. So we're actually like same time zone. We're dealing with the same weather. I could drive and see you in like an hour and a half, which is totally really cool. Yeah. And we didn't know each other until 15 minutes ago. So Amanda, welcome. So good to have you here.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a variety of things today, but Amanda, I was really, really intrigued by your story because you've gone through quite a transformation in your life, like most of us have, but you really had some pretty impactful things happen to you at a pretty young age. So let's start is a little bit about your background, what you were doing in your 20s, and like what the moment of reckoning was for you that has you here in a podcast telling us your whole person executive coach. Because you probably didn't imagine that back in the day. So
I was on a fast track somewhere back in the day, but I didn't think it was here. So I was in many ways, typical overachiever. Ivy League student. I graduated a semester early. I was in New York City at Columbia University. And I had a real driving desire to be successful and to make a name for myself and to matter, which I think most people that move to New York City, right? There's a piece of that. They want to be somebody. They want to make a name for themselves. And so I very early in arriving to New York City stumbled upon the party scene and the nightlife scene and thought, wow, this is a great way to be somebody. Like if you can do this, like you're somebody. And at that time, what is now Tao Group, which many people may have heard of, it's a global $1 billion, hospitality business. It was sort of just getting off the ground. They had Tao, the restaurant, and Marquee, the nightclub, had just opened. And I applied to be their intern. The guys I applied to be the intern. I was a junior at Columbia. And they hired me. They were shocked that an Ivy League kid wanted to come work at a nightclub, but I knew that these guys were like the movers and shakers in the industry. If I wanted to get in, these were the people to be in with, right? And so really, like as soon as I started working for them, I was going to work every day from 9 to 5, unpaid internship, mind you. And then back in the day, they didn't pay us back in the day. And then going to classes at Columbia from 6:10 to 8:55. So basically 2 hour and a half classes every night, which meant after that, it was studying, it was homework, it was partying, it was nightlife. And I kept up that pace for many, many years. I graduated early to get a job with them. I became a partner when I was 27. And the next year I was going to a routine doctor checkup. And my doctor said, Amanda, your pulse is completely erratic. You need to go to a cardiologist right now. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm fine. I was vegan. I was actually a certified yoga teacher and a vegan at this time. I was in great shape, quote unquote thriving. I mean, I was quite stressed and quite, working crazy hours, but in my mind, I was crushing it. And many other people's minds, I was crushing it. And, to kind of cut to the chase of many, many doctor's appointments, my heart was skipping every third beat. So highly erratic, arrhythmia, very dangerous. Could have dropped dead pretty much at any second. And I was having fainting spells and things, but I didn't really think there was anything wrong with me, which sounds crazy, but it's like people go undetected with these things. So I had to get heart surgery, not open heart surgery, but a catheter ablation. And at the time, there was a lot of talk of, well, you need to take this medication forever. You need to get on a pacemaker. And I was like, what the, can I cuss? Like, what?
You could definitely cuss. Please do.
What the fuck? I had so much shame because, I would be in the doctor's office and everyone there was like 75, it was like these old people whose hearts were giving out, and it's me, I'm 28 in my high heels and my phone in one hand and my BlackBerry in the other. And I'm like, I got to hurry. I got to get back to work, and, the amount that I was working, the stress, the late nights, and of course, all of our bodies are different. Some people suffer from gut health issues when they're overstressed. Some people, it's mental health, right? I was sort of mentally, emotionally, quote unquote, fine, but my heart could not keep up with the pace of the way that I was working. And so I made the decision to take a sabbatical. And as I mentioned, I was already a trained yoga teacher, which is pretty fucking hilarious, you know, this stressed out, burnt out yoga teacher, you know, New York City yoga teachers, that's who we are. And during that year, I got certified in MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction. This is a school of thought developed by John Kabat-Zinn at Harvard. So it's sort of clinical mindfulness. I went to Institute of Integrative Nutrition, became a certified holistic health coach. I got a Reiki certification. I did an integrative yoga therapy certification. I mean, I call it like my study abroad year in being a well person. But I really, really went deep into really understanding, okay, how do I not kill myself? Like, how do I not die? And what's interesting is at that time, I knew nothing about the nerve. I had no idea what the nervous system was. I didn't know about vasovagal theory and the connection between, you know, the mind body and all of that stuff. I had vague understanding of it from my yoga studies. But I learned so much in that year that I was able to bring back when I came back to New York City and was like, I want to still be a working person. I still want to be successful. I just don't want to kill myself while doing it. So, you know, what I'll say is I think a lot of people get mini wake up calls. I'm actually kind of lucky that I got such a big one. There was no playing around for me. I knew that I had to change my life in order to keep living my life. I you know, it wasn't like, my acne got really bad or like, I'm not pooping every day. You know, no, I had heart surgery. So
you had heart surgery at 28.
Yeah.
Wow. I have so many questions. I think the main thing that pops up for me is how much of that you said you felt fine a lot, but you also had fainting spells. I'm going to speak for myself. There's been times in my life where you tell yourself, oh, I'm totally fine. But when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, there were so many signs. Anybody who's fainting should probably go get something checked out. Or the fact that you were feeling a certain thing. What part about that story, I'm trying to think how to say this.
Smells like bullshit.
No, it's like I'm picturing your drive just masking this whole other thing that was actually going on. Like your insatiable, it's like an insatiable desire for success that just has you just ignore your body. And now that you're more of a body like, you know this.
Yeah. And I'm going to get clinical. I'm going to get clinical with you for a second. So I'm in my third year of a certification in something called somatic experiencing, which is sort of like the gold standard for trauma informed nervous system care. So, you know, everybody's familiar at this point with fight, flight, freeze. And when our nervous system is highly activated, it hijacks the other systems, such as rest and digest, right? So that is why so many people, when they're in extended chronic stress, fight mode, flight mode, whatever your kind of natural thing is, your body stops digesting food well. You can't sleep, right? You have those types of health concerns. There is another layer. And so what I had was called vasovagal syncope, which was basically I was fainting because my heart wasn't rushing blood to my brain quickly enough. And the reason for that was because my nervous system thought that there were other more important things it needed to do. Like my nervous system was in such chaos that it actually thought that like, we can't do this. Like, it's like a extreme flight response. Just pass out, right? So animals in the wild do this, right? But the crazy thing is, you know, now I'm an executive coach. I have other clients who experience this same thing. And, you know, what I had told myself back then, which is also true, is that I just have low blood pressure. Oh, I just didn't eat enough today. Oh, you know,
of course. Yeah.
But our nervous system, it is responsible for so much more than we even realize. And like, if people take anything away from this episode, it's like, go research your nervous system, not on TikTok. Although there's good people out there, but like research your nervous system and really get an understanding of like, this has been running my whole life. And I maybe didn't understand just how much control it had over me.
Yeah. Amanda, thank you for sharing all that. I want to do a callback here to an episode I did with my friend, Dr. Eugene Choi, a few weeks ago. And he's a coach as well. He's actually a pharmacist by trade, and he's done a lot of neurological studies. Neurology is his thing. And he talks a lot about your executive state and your survival state. And in your survival state of the fight, flight, or freeze response, and how a lot of the things in culture that are attributed to like powerful ways of working are actually just a fight, flight, or freeze response.
Yeah.
My assertion would be, and I, from knowing you for a whole like 25 minutes now, I guess you're going to agree this. It sounds like you're in your survival state almost all the time.
100%.
Like you're pretty much your fight state of like driven the fight state of that.
100%. And then when my body couldn't do anymore, I would go into a severe state of flight, which would be passing out, right? And you know, like more people are experiencing this than realize, just because they didn't have, like I said, as extreme of a wake-up call as me. They're experiencing it in smaller ways, and so it's easier to have it go undetected.
Yeah. So obviously you're extremely intelligent. You talked about the things you've done, your education, you went to a great school. I was going to assume that means a little something about you, not as much as maybe we'd make it out to be, but it means something. Looking back now at all the education that you at the time had done, was your creativity limited by operating in that survival state? Because that's usually the first thing that goes.
You know, when I think back about the person that I was at that stage, not just creativity, but all functioning that required actual presence. So real joy, real connection, real creativity. When we are in a highly activated, dysregulated nervous system state, we almost, like, you know, the saying, we don't know what we don't know. We get so disconnected from the parts of us that are able to, you know, like, so the more regulated state, right? It's connection, it's rest, it's a more, you know, in just like in our biology, right? When we're regulated, we have a really wide purview, right? Our peripheral vision is online. And when we're in fight mode, it's like we can only see the laser in front of us. And I want people to know that, like, when you're in that state, it's not a choice. It's not like you're intentionally saying, no, I'm this driven and I only want to focus on this. And I'm, you know, your nervous system makes it feel like you don't have any other option.
That's right.
And so, you know, I work with a lot of people now who are kind of in that state and trying to get out of that state. And I have so much compassion for it, because gosh, it's a prison.
And it's extremely useful in certain circumstances. It's wildly useful.
Wildly useful.
Like you said, you're a parent. I'm a parent.
Yeah.
You see your kid about to get into danger. I don't want to be creative about what I'm going to do. I want to be able to do that without any thinking. Yeah. So my guess is, if I was to, I coach a lot of these similar people too, and it was kind of me in my 20s as well.
Yeah.
I'm picturing, if I was to go back and interview people who knew you then, they like, she'll run through a fucking brick wall to get it done. She's reliable. She'll get it done. She's going to be awesome at it, but like hard to connect with, and not a lot of like visionary thinking, because that's generally the survival state you go to.
You know, what's interesting about me, and we'll go to, you know, I'm also studying to be a trauma therapist, so we can go to the trauma side too. They often refer to me as a machine because of this sheer level of output that I was able to, you know, I was able to do the work of 4 or 5 people, no problem. But I'm also a performer. And so I was very able to have people feel like they could connect with me, but I wasn't actually connecting with people. So it is very, if you have a certain type of personality, if you're a performer and a people pleaser, you can put on, you know, and I did sales for a global hospitality firm. I was charming as fuck, but I wasn't allowing people to see me or know me. I wasn't experiencing, you know, deep, intimate connection. And so, and that's also, you know, quite damaging as well, to feel like nobody really knows you, but gosh, you're so popular.
Yeah. No, you're a parent now, and I think your kids are they're still in elementary school or younger. So they're moving through what I would say the less driven part of academics as a younger age, but it's not too far off where they're going to start to think about high school, college, the competitiveness of that.
Yeah.
And that is such masculine energy to me on the outside looking in. We have kids that are about the same age, of like, it's all about performance and how you do it. I'm curious, as a parent, how do you look at that now, knowing what you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty funny. I mean, I've gone, I don't want to say completely into the opposite direction, but I'm going to give you a quote by Deepak Chopra that kind of summarizes my thinking on parenting, which is, he said, if my kid was excelling at tennis and getting, flunking at math, I wouldn't get him a math tutor. I'd get him a tennis coach. And
Mm,
so, what he's saying there is like, you should work hard and you should put effort forth and you should develop skills and talents, but not in this sort of like maniacal, everything has to be perfect, straight A kind of way. And look, like that is not necessarily congruent with what society typically and historically has valued. However, what you and I know as entrepreneurs, and my husband is also an entrepreneur, is that it doesn't matter if you got a 4.0 in high school, if you have a skill or a talent that you have mastery in, that you develop, that you commit yourself to, that you are earnest and hardworking and dependable. And I would rather see my children excel in something that they have a natural aptitude, gift, and love for than get like straight A's across the board. And if that means, they go to a different type of college than I went to. Look, I went to Columbia. My husband went to Columbia. I don't give a shit where my kids go to college, to be honest with you. It's
yeah.
a different
Nice.
era. It also
Yeah.
it's not something that I feel would make me feel particularly proud or unproud. If they wanted to do it and they were, and they had the skills and the grades and the scores, I wouldn't say, no, I don't want you to go there. That's an
Yeah, of
elitist,
course.
organization,
Yeah.
whatever. But I'm not going to be, like, and like, God bless my parents. But my dad would like refer to us as like where we went to college. I've got the Duke, the Yale, and the Columbia, like those were the three kids. And like, look, my dad grew up, he didn't have a dad. He was dirt poor. Both my parents were dirt
Sure.
poor. So like that sort of immigrant success story of kids going to a good college. But guess what? I was fucked up. I've been doing trauma healing and therapy for 20 years, and so have my siblings. And so,
Yeah.
and I don't know that all of that struggle and that pushing and that necessitation of the perfect SAT scores and all of that, I don't know if that actually, got me any further along in life than I would have if I had been happier and more regulated and just allowed to pursue my own passions. So,
I love it. Yeah. I have another parenting question. I'm being
Yeah.
selfish because I'm asking.
No, it's great.
I'm asking you a question, but I'm asking you, and then I
Oh.
want to. The next thing I want to talk about is happiness, because I know it's something you work a lot with clients on and have had your own journey that you started to share. Is your oldest was born in 2015, so
Yeah.
they're either eight or 9.
Yep.
What are a boy or a girl?
Boy.
What are you seeing in his personality now? Because we have an 8-year-old as well. I'm starting to see the personality come out in terms of the drive versus, like, I think most kids are driven in some way, but what are you starting to spot in his personality that reminds you of yourself?
Yeah, there's things I see that are similar and there's things that I see that are very different. And I do think part of it is the difference in upbringing, a different type of attachment to a parent, a different type of response from a parent matters a lot. My son is obsessed with football, not just playing football, but every aspect of it. You could ask him any player, any team, he knows stats, he knows scores. And so I see the passion. He's also, he considers himself to be the best in his class in math. He's very like confident and excited about his ability in math. And so I'm going to plug a friend of mine has a business called Curious Cardinals. And it's this program where you sign up a kid K through 12 with a college student, and they do like a mentoring project with them where it's like some type of project that the kid helps design. Right. But I'm going to have him partner with someone to do like a sports scores analytics program, right? Because I'm taking, okay, what is my kid obsessed with? What is he motivated by? Where does it intersect with something that actually is beneficial to like school and future and all that? And how can I make it interesting and fun and like, push him further on the things that he's obsessed with? That to me feels like how I want to motivate my kid. And to be honest, like, this is, I had a conversation with him a couple weeks ago because we did his like parent teacher conference, right? And I'm like, look, if you're a little overly chatty, if you didn't, if you got to go to the bathroom and you didn't ask, I'm not going to get mad at you about stuff like that.
Right.
Don't be an asshole. Don't hurt anybody and don't be an asshole. And, you know,
Yeah.
my feeling is like in the world that we live in now, the way that people become successful is so different than it used to be. None of the old shit like it is guaranteed to work. So my
Yeah.
thing is, if you're the type of person that people want to be around, it is so much more likely that you are going to be successful because people will want to have you on their team, whatever it is, right? And so if
Agreed.
I can have a kid who has good morals, you know, decent level of just like respect and you know, empathy for other humans and is happy, right? Speaking of happiness, if he goes and applies for a job, he's going to be light years ahead of, you know,
Totally.
other people. So that's my take. It's like double
Mm.
down on the shit that they're obsessed with and maybe not put as much pressure on them on the other stuff as long as it's not like, you know, violence or like
Yeah, no,
being a
absolutely.
bully, right? You know, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think this is. I'll give you quick my perspective on this with AI and a lot of the technology that's available now. The kind of the pure expertise jobs aren't as valuable
Yeah,
anymore.
totally.
Like
It's
look at
EQ.
the look. Yeah, I mean, look at the things that 30 years ago were arguably the most valuable things that now. I had this experience. I don't know if have you seen the movie Oppenheimer?
No. I've heard,
Okay.
I've read about it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it won Best Picture. It's amazing. But I was, you know, like the pure scientific marvel that was in 1944. I think most of what they did, you could probably plug into ChatGPT and get an answer for now.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yep.
they built a bomb. They built a
Yeah.
bomb that, you know, like,
Yeah.
so it's amazing. And it's not to say that there's a lot of room for the intellectualism and all those, but like how you treat people is a thing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
yeah. So I want to talk about happiness, and in a specific way here, Amanda. One thing that I hear in my practice, we coach different types of folks, I think, or maybe we probably coach the same type of people. Hear a lot is I don't have time, I don't understand the value, and specifically in the realm of like combining your spiritual practices or what that means to you with I call that like who you are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the who you are in the world, and then there's the what are you, or like you probably heard that your form and your function.
Mm-hmm.
My form is this thing that is like not related to what I do, and then it likely influences my function. But you hear people go, well, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to meet with a coach. I don't really have time to dig in on these things because I'm busy doing blank, making
Yeah.
money, raising kids. And just to call it out, this is for men and women, but my experience, especially with women, is I'm not worth it. I'm not worth actually investing in myself. And I'm talking about like the time and energy part. Forget the money. You could be a billionaire, but like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what? I'm not worth actually getting to know myself in that way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you hear this all the time.
Yeah.
So I'd love to just bring the conversation to the kind of work you do and things that you've learned for yourself, which it sounds like, and I love this because in personal branding, so it's like the person you're best equipped to serve is the person you once were.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh,
Totally.
you're like, there's Amanda
Yeah.
from 5 years ago. Or
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
so do you ever have the experience as a coach where you're like, oh, there's Amanda from yesterday?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, there's Amanda from today. There's Amanda from this morning.
Yeah.
Right?
You're like, oh wow. You're like, oh wow. There's a saying in the coach training program went through. It's great. It's like, generally your clients are usually like one step behind or one step ahead of you.
Yeah.
And as a
100%.
coach, it's so fascinating where you're like, that's the exact same thing that I talk to my coach or my therapist about.
Yeah.
But
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So I'll start with sort of what I say to the most cynical of people, or
Mhm.
I would say either the most cynical, because I used to be cynical. I used to be dark, man. I used to think everything was like so stupid. Like, oh God, how cheesy is that? But I talk about something called pragmatic positivity. So what I mean by this is, if you're running a business, if you're working at a company, right, there is a certain level of positivity that is required in order for things to move forward and for them to move forward efficiently and well, right? Whether that's motivating other people, whether that's getting consumers to pick up what you're putting down, whether
Mhm.
that is instituting enough confidence in colleagues or whatever to make people not be in a state of fear, right? And so
Yeah.
cultivating positivity can be done solely for pragmatic reasons. when
Sure.
you are in a fully negative, fearful, judgmental, overwhelmed state, it is having negative impact on how impactful you can be, right? Whether you're running a team, reporting to somebody, whatever you're doing in life, if you are a negative sack of shit, like you are not getting the results that you could have. So I start with that, right? Even if you don't want to do it for any sort of personal development, altruistic, reason,
Yeah.
let's at least do it because your KPIs are suffering, right? Because the copy that you're writing is not engaging your consumer because it's coming from a place of overwhelm, unhappiness, et cetera, et cetera. So I start with that. And that generally, because some people come to me when the spark is like almost out, right? When they're like,
Yeah.
oh God,
You're
and
my last
that,
hope, Amanda.
yeah, literally.
No
And I'm
pressure.
like, okay,
No pressure.
no pressure. But when I talk about pragmatic positivity, so you're familiar with parts work, you've done therapy, right? And so I talk about
Oh, yeah.
parts work a lot in my coaching because there is a piece of you that is a cynical piece of shit. And it's going to think any love and light spiritual stuff is a bunch of BS. And
Totally.
you have to appease that part of you before the other parts of you can even come online for many of us, right? And so I talk about pragmatic positivity because I want someone to say, you know what? Fuck, I do have to do this. Not because I want to be happy, even though they do, but because my team, why do all my direct reports hate me, right? Why am I not getting promoted or whatever the thing that's going wrong? It's like, well, like you can use positivity very strategically to improve on key markers that are currently suffering, right? So I start with that so that the part of them that is cynical, that is totally burnt out, that is totally overwhelmed, that has no time for nonsense, right? Quote unquote nonsense, will listen, right? And then I generally, so in the world of somatic experiencing, right, we want people to sense what something feels like in their body.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to give people actions to do and just do this and let me know how it feels. Just do it and let me know how it feels. If you don't like it, great, I don't care. If you love it, amazing. We'll talk about it next time. Or I'll give people introspection prompts to think about how certain activities make them feel or not feel. And the thing is, what I believe about the human spirit and the human nature is that we are a moth to the flame of joy, right? Like we are so drawn to it and we really want it. But there's so many things in the way. There's so many things blocking our ability to just gravitate towards it. And some of those we can't do anything about, right? Like not everything is like clear it away and like living in the perfect, but many things are. And some of the most important things are very, very malleable. And so the thing is like, once you get someone to just have a taste, see a glimmer, right?
Yeah.
It is very easy. And that's why I have certain clients, like when I work with someone who's like an active CEO of a company, they get on retainer, we work together years at a time, right? If someone has a specific project or a specific problem that they're trying to solve, I always tell them 3 months, that's all we need. By the end of 3 months, you'll be able to do this yourself. I don't want to sit there and have, I mean, I love having nice conversations with people, obviously, but like my goal is like, let me reignite the little spark and then you can keep that flame going. And maybe in a year, if you're like, oh God, I totally lost that momentum.
Happens.
But it's not like I find that joy cultivation is not like diet or exercise where it's actually like really easy to fall off the wagon when it comes to like working out or, eating healthy, because there's a lot of pleasure that can come from eating unhealthy or sloth, right? Whereas if I'm encouraging people, like something I love to tell people to do, which is so basic, go for a phone-free walk. Just go for a phone-free walk. Notice things. 10 minutes is fine. Leave your phone behind and go for a walk. And people are like, that was amazing.
They're like, Amanda, I was laughing because I was like, can I still bring my Apple Watch? Can I still have something?
Right? But that's the thing, that's the thing. And so once people do it, I love to see like the light return to people. And I love people hopping onto a call and being like, oh my God, I did this. And then I did that. And and I'm like, yeah, this is you. This is the real you coming back online, you know?
Yeah. I have something to offer here around one of the things that somebody I trained with, my mentors, she said something to me, and she wasn't my coach. She was just like a training mentor. And I'm sure you run into this all the time because high performance people do this all the time, including myself. And she'd say, I'd ask you how you feel about something and you would give me a story or an explanation or you'd intellectualize it, but I haven't yet heard how you actually feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'd go, do you know how you feel? And I'd go, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like I can tell you the story of why I might feel a certain way, and I can like logically give you this is like the head-based stuff, right? Of like, here's all the reasons why it's not going well at work. Right. Have you ever had a client where you go, hey Amanda, how's it going at work? And they'll give you all the stuff, which is great. You know, how do you feel about that? And then they'll continue to tell you the reasons why, but they will not tell you how they feel about it. And and one of the things they say in therapy and coaching, you spot it, you got it. I recognize it because I do it to myself.
Yeah.
Where you're like, yeah, but I'm not. Am I even I know that I have a feeling, but am I even present to what that feeling is?
Yeah.
And to me, as somebody I'm working on my spiritual journey. I was sharing a little bit with you before we record. To me, that is the aspect of the spiritual journey that everybody should get access to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've been a spiritual student and a spiritual practitioner, spiritual teacher for a long time, even when I was a hot mess. Like I took Bob Thurman's class at Columbia when I was like 19 years old and was, got really into yoga, got really into Hinduism, got really into Buddhism. I was Catholic growing up and actually like loved going to church and teaching Sunday school and singing in church and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I've gone down a lot of different paths pretty deeply. And the way that I view and teach spirituality now is like the most simple, like this distilled version of spirituality, which is I want people to go out and look at their sky and put their feet on their ground and see the plants that are growing where they are and the animals that are walking around in their area, even if it's a dog on a leash, right? It's like your connection to, I used to exoticize it so much. When I was on my sabbatical, I went to India and was at all the temples in India. I've been to Bali. I did all of that stuff. And, I enjoyed it. I have no problem with people who change their name to Shakti and whatever, like do what feels right to you. But for me, I'm like, gosh, the holiest experiences that I've ever had is like holding my child's hand or like seeing the sky, look a certain way. And when you look at like indigenous cultures and now like, lots of people are very, sometimes problematically, but revisiting and understanding the sort of indigenous way of being in connection with the land and reciprocity and just the kind of like simple beauty of spirituality being infused to everything and every action and every day. And, that doesn't require learning Sanskrit. It doesn't require wearing a certain outfit. It doesn't require you to change anything about who you are, where you are, what you're doing, how you're saying it. It's noticing, appreciating, and then maybe like pausing just a little bit longer. And that is an amazing spiritual practice. Amazing.
Pausing? Who has time to pause? No way. Certainly not me.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing about pausing is that it's kind of like you feel snaky at first, you're like, ooh, am I being bad? Can I do this? And then once you get away with it, and you're like, ooh. And so going back to the pragmatic thing, I really try to reinforce with my clients, and honestly, I still have to do it with myself, although now it's so part of who I am and what I do. My spiritual practices are quite extensive.
I can imagine.
It makes you better in all the other facets of your life. It is not just, it's not just fun. It doesn't just feel good, right? Like I would not be able to do the work that I do in the way that I do it if I were not in stillness, if I were not going on my nature walks and doing my breath and my meditation, I certainly would not be the parent that I am,
Yeah.
because parenting takes all of your capacity to
Yep.
show up
Yes,
and
it
be
does.
present and be patient and be connected. It's so demanding energetically. And, and if I didn't do if I didn't have my time pausing, I wouldn't be able to do those things. And do I like them and enjoy them? And are they fun? Yeah, that too. But if that's not enough for people, like, just know that it's gonna make you, and I can list all the famous people like Phil Jackson and whatever, all these people that meditate. Well, why do they do it? It's not just because they have a lot of time on their hands.
No, Phil Jackson's a Zen master. They called him the Zen
Yeah.
master.
Yeah,
That was his
totally.
nickname. His
Yeah.
nickname.
Yeah.
So Amanda, because I love when I get brilliant folks on my podcast like you to steal some of your brilliance for free for people. And I don't say steal, but I'd love to hear, let's say this is a call-in show. I'm just making this up. It's a call-in show. Somebody calls in and says, this all sounds amazing. I don't know what to do next. What's the thing? Like, let's say you have, and maybe the context that does work, or that's very apropos for you, is they hire you as their coach, or they don't hire you as their coach for a million reasons, but they say, you know what, I need to get started somewhere.
Yeah.
What's the thing that people will go, this all resonates? I know that, because I think most humans, like, we intuitively know there's a spirit thing, whether or not it's religious, but there's something that's about us, and it gets killed for many of us, myself included, through pressures and work and parenting and all those things. And they're like, I want more access to that thing. What's the thing you generally would say to somebody that feels like, even though we probably know they're not, they're starting at one, like they're starting at one. What do you have people do? Like, what's the first thing you have people start to practice?
Yeah. So there's two things I would say, and it will depend on what, like, one or the other would be more impactful, whether you're somebody who's more like body oriented or like mind verbal oriented. So the first thing, which is more sort of body nervous system oriented, which is to think about your nervous system like you brush your teeth, right? So not that you have to have some extended crazy routine or any special accessories, but you better freaking do it in the morning and at night, or like you're gonna have problems, right? So can you, when you first wake up, take 1 minute, right? Maybe 3, but like even a minute to pause, either sit with your feet flat on the ground or go into like a child's pose. I have some clients who they will have a yoga mat just laying right by their bed as a reminder, so that when they first wake up, instead of going right to the phone, instead of going right to the frantic, do a child's pose for 60 seconds and breathe. Let your nervous system regulate. Just notice how your body's feeling. Ask yourself, what's racing in my mind? Just check in, literally 60 seconds, and then go on your day. And the same thing before bed, right? Instead of letting your phone be the last thing you say, sit and breathe for 60 seconds is not enough to get you into the parasympathetic. It's not enough to like shift you, but it is enough to get awareness. And like, as you start to do that, you're like, okay, I have a little bit of data. What's going on with me, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is journaling. And like, people roll their eyes at journaling. But what I will often give people as a prompt is write to your journal as if somebody who could help you with all your problems was listening.
Oh, that's good.
Today was
like
really
that.
rough.
I
And
like that.
I just like, I don't know what I want to do about this. Like, my daughter's really struggling here. I really hope you can help me with this. Right. And it's like, are you writing to God? You're writing to spirit. You're writing to your higher self. You're writing to your, in therapy, they talk about the ideal parent. You're writing to whoever it is, right? Like, put it out there that there could be some form of support. And at the very least, it's a brain dump and it's a processing.
I love that.
And maybe it opens, a little portal where you're like, oh, maybe there is divine assistance out there that I actually believe in or that I could access.
Yeah, I'm gonna own something here, not live with you and I in the podcast. I want to talk about a little bit about your podcast, all the ways people can connect with you. But I had an intuitive hit to ask you a question, and I'm hoping this is impactful for the audience. I'm just following it. Amanda, what would you tell 23-year-old Columbia graduate Amanda? What would you tell her? And I'm asking you this because I'm guessing you've done this repeatedly based on what you've shared with us. Like, what would you tell her?
It's very interesting, and I would. And this is once again going back to my childhood trauma. There's not much I would say to her. I would sit her down and I would hold her. I would hold her and I would stroke her head and I would tell her that she's doing a great job and that, you don't need to push this hard. You don't need,
Mm.
there is a certain type of person. I think it's many of us for whom love was not something we received. Love was something that we secured, right? And there's a big difference from receiving love and then actively securing love. And, many spiritual people will say that all we're ever really seeking is love, right? If we're seeking success, fame, money, whatever, all we're ever really seeking is love. And so a great kind of, giving, and this is my like number one piece of parenting advice, right? Is like love your children when they're not doing something praiseworthy, right? Like just love them, because I think what I needed to hear most, but hearing it wouldn't have landed. I needed to feel it.
You need to feel it. Yeah.
I needed to feel it. I needed to just be held and just have somebody just like, oh, look at you. Like what a just great little piece of human you are, and just hold me and settle my nervous system. Like if 23-year-old me could co-regulate with 40-year-old me, she'd be in a good place. But we don't have anybody to co-regulate with, right? And for people that don't know, co-regulation is when you're around somebody with a regulated nervous system, it helps you get into regulation, then everybody feels good. But when there's lots of dysregulation and everyone's dysregulated together, it's like it's a perfect storm. So I would hold her and let her regulate.
Beautiful. That's so nice. That is what a brilliant thing. What a brilliant thing for those of us who are listening to that to just do now.
Yeah, totally.
Like do that now. Yeah. Amazing, Amanda.
Yeah.
Wrap up today. Let's first talk about your podcast.
Yeah.
You're a fellow podcaster. Love that. And then any other ways people can connect with you.
Sure. So the podcast is called Full Plate, Full Cup. So you can, extrapolate. It's about people that have had really, really busy lives and careers and have figured out ways to keep their cups full. So we interview entrepreneurs, executives, creatives, but always on a lens of sort of like, how'd you do it? How'd you either like move through the kind of burnout risk, avoid the burnout risk, recover from the burnout risk. It's always with a lens on like finding that balance, but actually like becoming quite successful while being mindful of your mental, emotional, physical well-being. So that's Full Plate, Full Cup, available, all the podcast places. And then my website, amandabaudier.com. I primarily do one-on-one executive coaching, but I do have some more community-facing offerings that I'm putting out into the world that are all free, such as free live guided meditations. I send out like journal prompts, and I also have retreats twice a year. That I do. I look forward to connecting with people who aren't executives, because everybody needs this.
Everybody needs this. Amazing, Amanda. We'll have all that. We'll get all that in the show notes, and we'll get people connected to you. And Amanda, I just want to thank you. I was telling Amanda beforehand, some of the people I interview on this show, and this has been going for over 4 years now, which is still mind-blowing to me.
Awesome.
Some of the people I've known for years. I've interviewed my wife. I've had her interview me. Some people come to me through various channels, and some people just like reach out as a genuine human. And like you reached out a couple weeks ago. I'm like, my thought was like, fuck yeah. And here we are.
We're both here in the Catskills. Yeah.
We're here in the Catskills with like same age kids. So Amanda, thank you so much. I will definitely be seeing you in one of your meditations soon. I'm always looking for that. Thank you so much for being on. Appreciate your wisdom today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amanda. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.